What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB, and more specifically, an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. Now, as you guys know, we've been working our way through our divisional breakdowns. Today, we are going to be talking about the AFC East, and more specifically, all of the players in this division that you should be keeping an eye on for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Players whose stock can improve or maybe even decrease over the course of the year. Players to watch, breakouts, sleepers, all of the 9 yards. You guys get it right here on Let's Talk Dynasty. But as I said, it would not be Let's Talk Dynasty without my co-host, so let's not waste any more time. Let's bring him right into the building. Let's start talking about the AFC East. War, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing just fine. I'm doing good, actually. Good. Better than good. Great.
I feel part of that is probably because you were watching Caleb Williams today. As the people know, we record these a little bit earlier in the week. These episodes we're recording a little bit earlier than that because I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to be in Vegas with you for a fantasy football draft. But
Yes, sir.
we're watching Caleb Williams. I'm assuming it's got you kind of happy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Got Tyreek Hill saying that he reminds him of Patrick Mahomes. That's just like the perfect way to start the day off.
There you go. There you go. All right, man. Well, we are going to be talking about the AFC East today. So not really the exciting quarterbacks like, I guess there's some exciting quarterbacks in this division. I was going to try and, have a Caleb segue, but we do get to talk very first about a team that's not projected to be very good. It is a 4.5 win projected team, the New England Patriots. Now, looking at the New England Patriots here in 2024, there is quite a bit of change. You have the team that missed the playoffs last year. They go out, they get the number 3 overall pick. They draft Drake Maye out of North Carolina, Jaylen Polk, Javon Baker. You also add in free agency Antonio Gibson, Jacoby Brissett, and KJ Osborne. And then you have them moving on from Bill Belichick, going to former All-Pro linebacker and 10th overall pick by the Patriots in 2008, Jerod Mayo. He is now the new head coach. He brings in Alex Van Pelt, who's going to run a very run-heavy offensive scheme there in New England. 4.5 wins. I think this is the lowest we've seen yet. Am I wrong? Is this the lowest one we've seen?
I believe it is. Man, the Patriots are going to be pretty bad, man. And yeah, man. Do I think? Yeah, they're not getting 5 wins. Hell no. 4 wins. Yeah, I'll take the under.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like 4.5. It feels so low. I think maybe we had another team. Maybe it was did Carolina maybe have 4.5 wins? I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I think they did.
it's just it feels so low. But I don't know, man. I mean, you kind of have a quarterback battle, and like I said, at the time of this recording, we have a quarterback battle of Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett. I think there's a potential chance that Drake Maye just wins this outright in the preseason. I mean, I look at how they played the last time they went out there on Thursday. Brissett, he threw the interception in the red zone. Maye, he actually looked pretty good. He threw a beautiful deep ball to Javon Baker, and Baker dropped the catch. But overall, I feel like it's kind of Maye's job to take right now. And if he does get this starting job, I said this to Caleb. You guys know Caleb Niemi. He's been a part of the channel before. He's done some content with us. I was saying to him, because he has been a very big Drake Maye fan over the last little while. And I told him, I said, this feels very eerily similar to the Bryce Young in Carolina situation. You have a talented quarterback, a young quarterback that goes into a situation that doesn't have good wide receivers, or maybe just unproven wide receivers. I mean, last year, when Bryce was drafted, they got Mingo and they brought some of these guys. Maybe you could compare that to like Polk or whatever. It just feels sketchy. That's the best way to describe this, I think, for me. But overall, 4.5 wins. If I have to bet, I guess I'm betting under. But I'm hoping, it's not the same situation for Maye, because I like Maye as a player.
Yeah, no, I think honestly, here's what I think. I honestly think it's not Drake Maye's job to take. I think they're going to go out of their way to make sure Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback, because they're not going to want to put Drake Maye in that no-win situation that Bryce Young was in, that Justin Fields was in his first season in Chicago, where you literally have next to nothing around you and you're dependent upon to be the one who pull all of that together. So I think they're going to make him take the long road, sit back and watch, because they also don't want to ruin him before he even gets his career started. So that's another reason why I think they're probably going to win less than 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Jacoby Brissett has never been a guy that I feel like has given you confidence as a franchise to roll out there. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. I mean, let's talk about some of the fantasy football options that they have here, especially in Dynasty. You have guys right now going in the Superflex KTC being keep trade cut, if you're not familiar, top 250 players in those Superflex leagues. Coming off the board is 64th overall player. You got Drake Maye as the QB 18. You got Rhamondre Stevenson as the running back 19. Jaylen Polk as wide receiver 51. Javon Baker, wide receiver 66. Demario Douglas as wide receiver 68. And Antonio Gibson is the running back 62. That kind of makes up all of the players there in the top 250. And as you can see, you know, there's not really a lot of confidence, I think, in drafters right now. Maye obviously being the highest drafted player, but he's still going outside of the top 50, even the top 60. And then the next best player is going outside of the top 100 in Rhamondre Stevenson. And I don't even feel like drafters are super confident in him. You have that big kind of tier of wide receivers with Polk, Baker, and Douglas. Douglas and Baker are actually very, very close in their rankings, and it seems like the majority of people feel like Jaylen Polk is the number one. But I'm curious, War, as you look at this ADP, you know, what kind of stands out to you, and what do you take away from some of the ADP that we have right here?
I feel like Polk, Baker, and Douglas should probably be a little bit closer to one another. The running backs, if I could put them outside of the top 50, I would. I didn't even like the running back room for the Patriots before they became this bad, just because of the way the offense is ran. Like, as far as the running backs, I know Belichick isn't there anymore, but this is even worse than what was going on with Belichick there. Rhamondre Stevenson not looking very bright for him. Antonio Gibson, I don't even think I could roster him. Drake Maye's ADP is fine. It's fine. He should probably be where he is, you know, especially considering we don't even know if he's even going to play a full game this season, in the beginning at least. But yeah, my biggest takeaway from the ADP here are definitely wide receivers. I don't think that wide receiver room has separated from one another that much. I mean, so that's kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, I mean, they have Polk going 50 spots higher than the other guys, and I get it, you know. Nick Ercolano from BDGE, he was recently talking to a beat writer in New England, and they were saying that Jaylen Polk is kind of the number one there. Like, he's been being used as the number one. He was their first draft selection of the wide receivers in that bunch, or the highest drafted player in that bunch. I wouldn't be surprised if Polk is the guy long term, but I think you're right. Until we kind of see guys establish themselves, it feels like drafting one significantly ahead of the others is a little bit of a gamble. Now, obviously, there's reasons for that, and I kind of already stated those. When it comes down to Demario Douglas and Javon Baker, who are going like one wide receiver spot apart or two wide receiver spots apart, it's going to be interesting to decipher how that is going to happen. I think if I were going to be forced to pick between them, I think I'm taking Demario Douglas, and he's going just a spot or two lower, but they seem like they're almost identical. But if you have to pick one way, I think I go Douglas.
Me too. Plus, it's just the fact that you don't really have to have to decide, okay, which one of these guys is the young guy. You know, it's Dynasty. Let me pick the youngest guy. All three of those guys are young. And with Douglas, we've already seen him do it in the NFL. We've already seen him be a productive player in the NFL. So that's why I said this group between Polk can't possibly be 50 spots below. Like, because with Polk, okay, you have the draft capital on his side. With Douglas, you have the production already in the NFL on his side. I think Javon Baker's the odd man out because he doesn't have either of those things in terms of the draft capital or the production in the NFL. So
yeah, he's kind of a different wide receiver than them too. He kind of profiles as that the outside guy, big play kind of guy. But look, when you get those big play opportunities, I don't want to harp on the drop too much, but when you get those big play opportunities and you're dropping the football like that, like, I understand why, you know, KJ Osborne is getting the start in the preseason game and other guys are getting the starts if you're not going to make the most of those opportunities. Now, I believe in him long term. I think he can be decent, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Now, I want to touch on the running backs just a tiny bit before we get on to the next team, because Rhamondre Stevenson, he's a guy that I've been much lower on than a lot of people in the community this year in both redraft format and in dynasty format. I just think he was a guy that kind of gave us volume, and he gave us the production based on the volume that he was given that one year with Bill Belichick. And
Yeah.
I've kind of been saying too, and when you look at my underdog exposure, the exposure of Antonio Gibson backs up the fact that I believe that Antonio Gibson is going to be a nuisance to Rhamondre Stevenson in this backfield. I think he is going to be much more involved in the receiving game than people want him to be, which is part of what kind of made Rhamondre Stevenson appealing before, because he was getting a lot of receptions. I think he's just going to be a pain in the butt for Rhamondre Stevenson. It's not going to be fun. You're going to see Antonio Gibson out there a lot and say, what's going on? And it's not going to be enough for Antonio Gibson to be relevant, but you're also going to not get the high upside of Stevenson. That's just the way that I feel about it. To me, Stevenson, he's a player that, if you got people in your league that still believe he can be a top 15, top 20 back, I'm getting out, man. I don't want to hold Rhamondre Stevenson. I think those days they were short-lived, and I don't think they're coming back, to be honest. I don't see him being a top, 12 running back again in fantasy football.
Yeah, I think that time has come and gone. That's kind of just the conundrum with Rhamondre Stevenson, is that he already took a hit in value just because the team is going to be so bad around him. But now you have him taking a hit in value with Antonio Gibson there, who really, you're not saying that him being pesky is going to mean that Antonio Gibson is going to have a great season. You're saying that him being pesky is going to have Rhamondre Stevenson have even less of a good season. So, in a season where he was already due to see some decline. So, yeah, man, I'm out on these. I'm out on Rhamondre. I'm out on these Patriot running backs altogether. I was never really in, but I'm definitely out.
And I just look at the tier of guys. I mean, I pulled it up on Keep Trade Cut, especially because that's what we're looking at for the ADPs. But, the tier of guys that he's in, keep in mind, Rhamondre Stevenson's not a young guy either. He's 26. He's going to be 27 midway through the year. Like, that's already kind of hitting the running back age cliff for the most part. And the guys in the same range as him, the two above him, just barely above him, are DeAndre Swift, who I much rather have DeAndre Swift than I would rather have Stevenson. And you have David Montgomery, who I think you would rather have David Montgomery in that Lions offense with the touchdown potential that he has rather than having Rhamondre Stevenson. Below him, Tajay Spears. I think he has similar upside. And you have Zamir White and Joe Mixon right below him as well, who I also think are going to have more volume and probably better offenses. So
I'd rather have them too.
There's just not a lot, I think, in this tier. Stevenson is the odd man out to me, and he's the most that I dislike in this tier. And it's a fine player, but the situation looks bad. And in Dynasty, when we're talking about maybe this offense being better in 2025. I don't want to hold Rhamondre Stevenson through 2024 to get to 2025 and then him be 27 turning 28. And now it's like nobody even wants him on the roster anyways. And if he goes out and gives you a dud year where Antonio Gibson was involved, the value's shot. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's being valued like probably lower than a guy like Najee Harris, Alvin Kamara, and those guys are going in like the 25 or lower range in Dynasty. So I'm out on Rhamondre, man. I can't say it any clearer. I'm out.
Yeah, and this wrong conference, but since we're on the East or whatever, I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. If I were the Cowboys, I would definitely be trying to acquire Rhamondre Stevenson because I actually feel like he will be a good fit there. But it's not like we're sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, he's horrible. He's not a good player." It's just that his situation just altogether was just one big mess. So I mean,
it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel for Rhamondre. When it comes down to it, I think the pieces that you want to gamble on are dart throws. It's at the wide receiver position. Jaylen Polk a little bit more than a dart throw, I think, just because of the second round draft capital. But Drake Maye, that's what you're hoping turns this ship around in New England, and it's going to be all on the back of Drake Maye if that does happen.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's look at this Dolphins team, because this Dolphins team actually has a projected win total of 9.5. So we have quite a significant jump from New England at the 4.5 wins to Miami at 9.5 wins. And Miami is actually projected third in this division right now. So it's kind of crazy to see that there is that one team that is so far down. But I guess maybe not surprising. You look at the Dolphins last year, they go to the wild card game. They lose to the Kansas City Chiefs 26-7 in the offseason. No major changes really anywhere, but you get the addition of Jaylen Wright in the NFL draft to add to this running back room of athletes. And in free agency, you add Jonnu Smith at the tight end position and Odell Beckham Jr. as the wide receiver 3. It's kind of an interesting team. We know that they extended Tua Tagovailoa as well. Jaylen Waddle got a contract extension. How are we feeling about this Dolphins and this 9.5 win total?
I'll take the over on that. I think the Dolphins could do anything between finish third in the division or win the division. In fact, I'll go ahead and say it. They're my pick to win that division.
Yeah.
They are my pick to win that division. So that definitely means that I think that they can beat the 9.5 win total. I think we'll be looking at 10 or 11 wins this season.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is going to be a really good football team. It's going to come down to those division games, and how it's kind of come down for Miami in the last couple of seasons has been, how does it, finish off at the end of the year when you're playing some cold football games in Buffalo and New York, and Tua has to take his, I don't know, whatever. They talk about Tua, he only plays good in warm weather. That's what I was trying to get at. I was trying to be clever. But, he takes him to the cold weather, doesn't really play as well. That's kind of been the narrative. How does he do that at the end of the year? We'll see. But at the end of the day, Tua, he gets the contract. I love Tua as a player. I think Tua's kind of been overhated over the last little while. I think he's been better than people give him credit to be, and the offense is going to be fantastic. If I go over the 9.5, if I have to pick for the 9.5, I'm going over. That's the way that I feel. When you look at the ADP options here, Superflex KTC, you got Tyreek Hill as the best asset on this team, or the most valuable asset on the team at the moment. He's the wide receiver 10. Jaylen Waddle is the wide receiver 12. Tua, the quarterback 15. Devon Achane, running back 6. Jaylen Wright, running back 32. Raheem Mostert, running back 39. And then you have Malik Washington creeping in there at 235 as the wide receiver 84. I really think the big talking point,
let's have it,
is the running back room. And more specifically, you have Devon Achane, who we are viewing as a top 6 running back in Dynasty right now. And then you have this significant gap. I mean, almost 100 points of ADP, 100 spots of ADP between Achane and the next guy, which we have now deemed as Jaylen Wright. Then it's almost 20 more points, and then you get to Raheem Mostert. Yeah. This running back room, how are we feeling about it? I mean, I think you and I both agree Devon Achane is the guy you want. Based on the draft capital, based on the, production that he's given us. But are we dismissing Raheem Mostert too much right now? I mean, I know the age is up there for Raheem, but to have Achane as running back 6 and Mostert as, what was it? It was running back 40 almost?
Yeah.
I think they finished pretty much similar points per game last year.
If that's how people are drafting, somebody's going to get a steal on Raheem Mostert. It's really as simple as that. So Devon Achane is my Puka Nakua of running back. You
need to see it again.
He's loved by the community. But he got hurt. And I'm just looking at some of the guys he's around. They got him right after Taylor. Travis Etienne. Am I taking Achane after Etienne? I don't think so. Kyron is a different case because I have my own ideas about what's going to happen with Kyron Williams. So I probably would take Devon over him, but Saquon, Kenneth Walker, I feel like he's closer to running back 10. That's just me, 9 or 10 than running back 6, because I'm taking Etienne, Barkley, and Kenneth Walker over him. And he's in that range with Kyron Williams, where I think Kyron Williams should be, and guys like Isaiah Pacheco. So that's just where I'm at with that. I think Raheem Mostert is still very relevant. I think they're going to run Raheem Mostert till the wheels fall off. Raheem Mostert was the guy until he got hurt. Then Devon got in there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're in an offense where they like to use multiple running back guys. Like, what are we not seeing here? You're going to see Achane. You're going to see Mostert, you're going to see Wright. You're going to see all 3 of them. So that's my main reason for why he shouldn't be running back 6. But yeah, man, I think to answer your question, I think we have the other 2 running backs in the offense a little bit lower than they should be, and we have Achane higher than he should be.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's been a lot of conversation about this Miami Dolphins backfield, especially in best ball circles, because you do have that massive gap between Achane and the next guys, and Jaylen Wright even, throw Jaylen Wright in there too, because he's explosive and he's good, and he was drafted, by this regime too. Like, there's an argument that, the best thing to do with this backfield in particular is to sell the most expensive one for the least expensive one and reap the reward in what the gap is. I've seen guys who have been able to, trade Achane for Jaylen Wright and get, 2 firsts thrown on top of it. Like, if you can do that, there's an equal chance. I think there's just as equal of a chance that Jaylen Wright finishes the same way that, Raheem Mostert did last year, or Mostert just comes out and does kind of maybe not the 20 plus touchdowns that he did last year, but still is involved the same way. And like, I've been doing it too. I traded Gus Edwards for Raheem Mostert because the Raheem Mostert manager was just sick of, I don't know, I guess they drafted Jaylen Wright and they didn't want Raheem Mostert on their roster. And I said, I'll take him. I'd rather have him than Gus Edwards. So I think that there's an argument. You just try and get pieces of this backfield, whichever ones it can be, but there's a chance that all of them hit or one of them hits or whatever. And it could be the least expensive of them. When it comes to the wide receivers, they're as elite as they come. Do you think, I know who I'm talking to at the same time as well. I was going to say, do you think Jaylen Waddle being a top 12 wide receiver in these rankings is warranted right now? You think he's a top 12 guy? Yeah. I figured that was your answer. But I want to bring up some of the names around him. Okay. Drake London, Chris Olave.
Definitely.
Rhamondre.
Right now, yeah.
Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins.
Yeah, I'm taking them over all those guys.
I feel that. I think, you have Tyreek Hill there. You know that Tyreek's going to be the one as long as he's there, but he's 30. So, we're maybe a couple years.
As the heir apparent. Now, I bake that into like his value is him being the heir apparent to Tyreek Hill. So,
well, and if he does end up, getting to be that guy, there's a ton of targets that get peppered into that role. So, that could be very good. I think other than that, there's really not too much to talk about. How do we feel about Tua? Low end QB1.
He's definitely the most confusing piece on here. Low end quarterback pack one. Yeah, I think if you have him as in your super flex spot, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Tua. So I mean, I think he's fine. I'm not a Tua hater like a lot of people, but I think he's fine. But when it comes to Tua, it's just like we were talking about. I forgot who we were talking about last week. It's the real life ramifications versus the fantasy football ramification. Yeah. Tua might great for our super flex spot, but is he great enough for the Dolphins not to feel the need to replace him next season
they just gave him a bunch of money.
Yeah, that's true. But it's the NFL. NFL's weird, bro.
Fair for these owners that got a ton of money and they are not afraid to spend it.
And you got to take his health into account too. So it's all just one big thing.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things to do. I've had a couple questions in the Discord and stuff lately about some quarterbacks, and I think one of my favorite things to try and do at the moment, if I can, is tearing down into the Tua Tagovailoa types at the quarterback position, especially in those super flex leagues. Like think about it like this: you have a guy like Jordan Love, maybe, who's being valued as QB9 in Dynasty. Yeah. Like he's being valued very highly, rightfully so. He's deserved to kind of be pushed up the board. But you have guys like Tua, Dak, Trevor Lawrence, Purdy, like those guys are they as exciting? Are they as fun as Jordan Love? Probably not. Are they going to give you somewhat similar production? There's a chance they could be similar producers to Jordan Love, but those guys that I mentioned are being valued in that QB 13, 14, 15, 16 type of range. And if you tear down from a guy like Jordan Love into a guy like Tua, you can get a future first round pick thrown in. You can get an actual like starting wide receiver thrown into the deal. You can get something to improve your team, but you're not going to lose that much value, I think, in a points per game basis when you have Mike McDaniel calling the plays, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jaylen Waddle and all of these guys in the offense. I mean, there's no surprise. I think this Miami Dolphins offense is going to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL in 2024. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So if that's the case and Tua throws for 30, somewhere between 30 and 40 touchdowns, let's just say that happens. You're getting a value at the quarterback position. I think he's a guy that if you feel like your roster is missing a little bit of an edge at the wide receiver position, or maybe missing an edge, in the running back room, and you feel like you need the one more piece, and you have the weight at the QB position to afford a down tier, I don't hate that at all. I actually think that's a pretty savvy move.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
All right, man. Well, let's move on to the Buffalo Bills here because the Buffalo Bills are projected 9.5 wins as well. This is a little bit of a different Buffalo Bills offense than we have seen in years past, and mainly because no Gabe Davis, no Stephon Diggs, but Josh Allen remains. In the 2023 season, they go to the divisional round and then lose. Feels like this is deja vu to the Kansas City Chiefs, 27-24. Another close game between Allen and Mahomes in the playoffs. Just for whatever reason, Allen can't get his upper hand in the playoffs. Curtis Samuel joins this team in free agency. Keon Coleman joins this wide receiver room in the draft in the second round. Ray Davis into the running back room behind James Cook. How do you feel about the 9.5 wins, and how do you feel about this new look Bills with no Stephon Diggs?
Under 9.5
Under.
wins, but not by much. I'm thinking like 9 wins. They'll have a winning season, but I think this team's going to take a step back. Like, I don't like anything that's happened this offseason for them. I do like the Curtis Samuel ad. You kind of talked me into that one, why that one would be good for them. I do like the Curtis Samuel ad. I like Khalil Shakir replacing Stephon Diggs with Keon Coleman. That's not going to play well. All the guys they had to cut from the defense to get the cap right, that's not going to play well. And you're going to put this whole entire operation on the back of Josh Allen. As talented as Josh Allen is, I think Josh Allen himself, when you remove all the aspects that they have lost over the offseason, Josh Allen himself will account for those 9 wins. But is the rest of the team going to be good enough to get them more than that? You're going to have 9 wins just off of having Josh Allen. Because I can't look at it now like in years past and say, okay, well, if Josh Allen has a bad game, he's prone to have them. If Josh Allen has a bad game, the defense is dominant enough to get them away. I don't feel like that anymore. I don't feel like that anymore, and I feel like they've gotten rid of Josh Allen's, security valve, the guy that he would throw to. Then you got Gabe Davis, who's not a world beater, but he was somebody who Josh Allen had chemistry with, who he could get the ball to. Now he's in Jacksonville. So it's like, I think they're going to take a step back, man.
Fair. I kind of agree. I don't feel as confident in them winning, the division. I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be between Miami and the next team we'll probably talk about here is who's going to win the division. But let me just say this, though, because I want to make this very clear. I do not think that because the Buffalo Bills are going to take a step back in real life and may not be the clear divisional winners, does that mean that Josh Allen is going to take a step back? Absolutely not for fantasy football. There are going to be people, I've already heard it, people in our draft, at our home draft, guys like to talk, they like to FaceTime, they like to talk about the draft, yada, yada. There's guys that are nervous about Josh Allen with no Stephon Diggs. There's people probably in your leagues, in your drafts, that maybe even have Stephon Diggs on their Dynasty roster, and they're like, well, if I can move off of him, I might move off him. Do not worry about Josh Allen. And the reason why I say that is because you got to think about, yes, it hurts not having Stephon Diggs, but what does that mean it's going to mean for Josh Allen? There's a very likely chance that they are not winning games because of defense. They are not in games where they are leading in the second half, meaning one, more hero ball for Josh Allen, where he is going to have to use his legs and throw the football long into the second half of games trying to get extra touchdowns. And I said the other part, the hero ball, he's going to have to run his ass off in 2024 if they want to remain in games. There's going to be times where it's like, hey, we need to go down and win. We might call a run play for Josh Allen 3 or 4 times on this drive just to make sure we're getting the first downs and we're making sure we're getting to the end zone. Like, Josh Allen could very well be, I don't want to put this expectation on him, but I'm going to, because I think he's going to do this. Remember 2015 Cam Newton with the Carolina Panthers? That they were a team that, they did very well in real life, but Cam Newton was the offense. It was Cam Newton. That is going to be Josh Allen in Buffalo. Josh Allen is the offense. He is going to be this fantasy football superstar. And yes, the last couple of years, QB1, Josh Allen, QB1, Josh Allen, QB1, Josh Allen. It's been what he does. I think that there's a chance this year he runs and rushes for more yards than he has in the previous seasons. Maybe the touchdown numbers in the air come down a little bit, but maybe the passing yards go up. There's a chance. I'm not fading Josh Allen by any means. I think he's still a player that you should draft very, very confidently as a top 1, top 2, at worst, I guess top 3 quarterback in Dynasty.
Yeah, and don't hear what I'm not saying either as far as like the team and his record. I still think they'll be fighting for a wild card spot. I just don't think they win the division. I think they're taking a step back. I 100% agree with Andrew. This is not, hey, yo, you better sell Josh Allen now as fast, get what you can while time lasts. No, this is not one of them situations. You're still going to look at Josh Allen as an untouchable asset on your roster, somebody who you're not looking to trade unless you're getting offered the absolute farm. So Bills take a step back. Josh Allen does not. Maybe things are a little more difficult for him now to get those points, but I don't think he's going to take a huge step back. We're still talking about number 1 or number 2 in fantasy football. So
yeah, I mean, I still have him as my QB1 in fantasy this year. So I have not moved him down my ranks. I still think he's going to do that. But let's talk about the ADPs because we've kind of already talked about the player. We don't need to talk about Josh Allen. He's coming off the board as the 2nd overall pick, the 2nd QB off the board, the only guy above him, Patrick Mahomes. But you have Dalton Kincaid coming off the board as tight end 3 now in Dynasty. With the 45th overall pick. Then you have James Cook, Keon Coleman, Khalil, Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Ray Davis, and Dawson Knox to kind of round out this team. Now, there's 2 talking points that we should get at, and there's really not much to talk about because we've already kind of talked about the wide receiver room, but everybody has deemed, similar to the Jaylen, Polk, and Patriots situation, Keon Coleman is by far and away the number 1 wide receiver drafted in this offense. And then you have Shakir and Curtis Samuel separated. I like taking the shot on Curtis Samuel later in drafts just because of how low you can get him. I mean, he's going with the ADP of 171. I think there's a chance he leads this team, at least the wide receiver room, in targets in 2024. He's somebody that I'm looking at as a potential sleeper. What do you think about this wide receiver room for the most part?
Honestly, Andrew, I got actually a couple things to say about a few things that all related about this ADP. Since you're asking me about the wide receivers, I will say this, but it's going to blend into the running back, so I might as well just have it all bunched up together. First and foremost, I don't think there's much to talk about. You could disagree with me. We said Josh Allen at 2, fine. I'm 100% good with Kincaid where he's at as well. I don't know if you are.
I'm good with Kincaid there. I don't think that it's that crazy. I think that there's a grouping of tight ends that you could consider in the top 4, probably considering Laporta number 1, and then you take your pick between like McBride, Kincaid, Bowers, Andrews. Like that's kind of the grouping that I find up there. I don't mind. I think Kincaid number 3 is great, especially with the opportunity he has in front of him. That's why I said Curtis Samuel could lead the wide receivers in targets because I think it's going to be Dalton Kincaid's team in 2024. I think he's going to be the other part of this offense that makes this thing run.
Okay, so now we're getting into it. Now let me tell you my issue with the ADP and having Keon Coleman where he is versus Curtis Samuel. This running back room, and I don't know exactly where the Dynasty community is on this. This running back room, I am not a James Cook truther. I'm just not. I think James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, guys like that are guys that while he's good, I have him great, but he's not a game breaker. He's like more of a solid starting running back. And for that reason alone, when you take into account James Cook being solid, Ray Davis is probably going to be the goal line guy. So I think he should get a little bit higher bump up in the ADP.
If it's not Josh Allen.
If it's not Josh Allen. But then Curtis Samuel is the most curious case. And this is why I start to try to acquire him in multiple leagues after talking to you about it. Curtis Samuel is going to live in that world of not only being the 3rd wide receiver on his team, but he's also probably going to be either the running back 2 or running back 3 on this team. So when you take that into account, I just cannot fathom why Keon Coleman is so far ahead in ADP than Curtis Samuel. And honestly, I think Khalil Shakir should be closer to Keon Coleman as well. I think Curtis Samuel will be an absolute steal if you can get him for somebody who think he's just some jag on the roster that you can just throw. He's going to be so valuable to this offense. I'm a Bears fan. I just watched the Bills play the Bears. They were using Curtis Samuel as both a wide receiver and a running back. This team, the coaches of this team have offensive coordinator has a relationship with this wide receiver and using him in that capacity. And I think that he is a huge sleeper for this upcoming season. So to answer your questions about the wide receiver room, I think that Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir should be in the same range as Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, you draft Keon where you draft him because of the potential upside. If Keon Coleman hits, if Keon Coleman, is capable of playing the outside X type of wide receiver and lives up to be Josh Allen's number one, you're looking at a player that can boom for fantasy football, and that's why you draft him there. But you're right. If you're strictly a contending roster looking at 2024, maybe you pass on the Keon Colemans and you look at the Khalil Shakirs or the Curtis Samuels, because the cost difference this year is going to be pretty significant, but the production difference might not be that far. Now, as I look at this wide receiver room, the more and more that I kind of start to dive into it and look into it and try and decipher this thing. Currently in best ball drafts, about the 11th round, you're able to kind of look at both Shakir and Curtis Samuel. And so I've been sprinkling kind of just like 50-50 both. I like taking one of those guys in that round, but some drafts I take Samuel, some drafts I take Shakir. And the reason why is because I think that there's a likely chance that either of them hits. You're right, though. People don't understand the fact that Curtis Samuel in college actually played running back for a little bit, then goes to the NFLs playing wide receiver with Joe Brady, being used out of the backfield. Some of the coach speak about Curtis Samuel in Buffalo has been from Joe Brady saying, we need more Curtis Samuels on this football team. We need more guys like him if we want to be successful, meaning that he sees kind of a big role for Curtis Samuel in this offense. You also have to account for the fact that once free agency opened, he was one of the first guys that they went out and grabbed. Like he was like one of their number one picks on their free agent board. So you got to kind of keep all of that into account. The only thing that I think kind of makes Curtis Samuel just a tiny bit, I want to just play devil's advocate, makes him tiny bit scary for me, is you look at how Dalton Kincaid is utilized. And I think this is more so as I've been diving into the tight ends lately, is Dalton Kincaid takes a ton of his snaps in the slot, actually, as a wide receiver. And Curtis Samuel takes a lot of his snaps in the slot as the wide receiver as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. There's risk with both Kincaid and there's risk with Samuel if they start kind of like eating into each other's slot roles. Now, I think it would be better for this team if Kincaid played in the slot a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. But I think because of that, Shakir is pretty safe on the outside. If you want to gamble between the two, he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. Like there is nobody outside competing with him other than Keon. But either way, I think those guys are undervalued, Shakir and Samuel. You're talking about a guy that's going to be, or guys that are going to be in one of the better offenses probably still in the NFL. I know, everybody is down on them this year. There's still going to be a top 10 offense, I think, in the NFL. Any offense led by Josh Allen is going to be pretty damn good. And so just give me the receivers attached to Josh Allen. I agree with you, though. James Cook, Ray Davis, they kind of are going to cannibalize each other. I think you look at the way that the Buffalo Bills have went about the running back room the last couple of years. They've been trying to bring in another guy with James Cook for, 2 or 3 years now at this point. They haven't found the guy. They brought in playoff Lenny. They brought in Ty Johnson. They brought in all of these other guys. Latavius Murray was there, I think, at one point. Like, they've been cycling through guys trying to find almost a bruiser, a bigger running back to put behind James Cook, because James Cook isn't that big of a guy. Ray Davis profiles as that. He's kind of a little bit of a bigger guy. And
like James Harrison playing running back.
Yeah, and I liked Ray Davis a lot in the draft process, and this kind of bums me out for James Cook, because I feel like the upside that you saw from James Cook down the stretch last year, because he was very good down the stretch. They leaned on the run game a lot, and they used James Cook a lot, but I think that's because there was nobody else in this backfield. He can still be very good. I don't think we need to fade James Cook to oblivion. I mean, right now in the rankings, I think he's like, what did that have him as? Like running back 12, 13? I still think he should be considered, in the same tier as guys like Jacobs and Swift and Monty and those guys. Like, he should still be there, but there's risk with a guy like James Cook.
Yeah. Dynasty wise, he should be around now.
So, trying to think, was there anything else on there that was? No, I didn't think so. I was looking at it. We pretty much covered it all.
Yeah.
Dawson Knox, do you give a damn?
No. I honestly forgot that he was even on there.
He just barely creeped in, but It is what it is. Let's move on to our next team here, though. This is the last team in the division, and actually the team that is projected, or I guess Vegas has the highest projected win total for them. The New York Jets. We got 10.5 wins for those Jersey Jets. If you ask Aaron Rodgers, he says they are the Jersey Jets, not the New York Jets. I wonder how people in New York feel about that.
Probably not.
But currently, 10.5 wins. Looking at last year, obviously a lost year. Aaron Rodgers had the memeable clip of him running out with the American flag and then tearing the Achilles in like 5 seconds afterwards. Then you have, just kind of a down year for the Jets in general, more of the same that they've had with Zach Wilson under center. This year, hopefully things have changed. They bring in Mike Williams in the offseason and Tyrod Taylor to be the backup quarterback. Zach Wilson no longer there. Malachi Corley in the draft, Braelon Allen in the draft, 10.5 wins. It's a lot of wins. Do you think that they can go over or under?
Hell no, I don't think they could go over. This is a paper football team. This football team is a paper machine. No, they shouldn't even be the New York Jets. They should be the New Jersey paper airplanes because they're a paper team. And I don't think that until they do something, I don't think they're going to do anything. I always think this team is going to eat themselves from the inside. They're not winning the division. They're going to be challenging the Bills for second or third in the division. The Dolphins, now that we're getting to the end of this division, the Dolphins are running away with the division. I said it first, they're running away with the division because I think the Bills take a step back, and I don't think the Jets are going to live up to the hype because they never live up to the hype. Like, there's a precedent there. They never live up to it. Like, Aaron Rodgers is going around. Like, don't get me wrong. I have my issues with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going around trying to run for vice president, ayahuasca, going to pyramids, all this crap. He's doing all this stuff, but then coming back and saying, we got to focus on teams, no distractions, and he's the biggest distraction. Then you got the lame duck head coach who probably at this point is hated by Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is probably already whispering in the front office's ear, like, because of the whole he wasn't excused from practice drama. Then, I mean, the only thing you can really rely on is the defense. I think the defense is still okay, but, like, we'll see because, I mean, they've been good for a few years now, but eventually it's like they've done nothing with the defense being good. Mike Williams, you mentioned him as an addition. Is he an addition or does he actually exist? So, yeah, they're not winning 11 games. Like, come on now. I don't know what Vegas is thinking. If they're trying to, like, finesse or fool some people into putting money on over, I don't see it. I just don't see it.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that want to root for the Jets. They want to root for the Aaron Rodgers. They want to root for the Jets just because they've kind of been the little brother of the AFC East for a while now. I think if they're going to do it, if they're going to win this division, if they're going to get to the 10.5 game and go over that, it's going to be carried by the defense. It's going to be because Aaron Rodgers came back and he is 100% healthy, which is a risk in itself already. It's going to take a breakout year from Garrett Wilson to really elevate into that elite wide receiver that we think he can be. It's going to take Breece Hall to be healthy. It's going to take a lot of things. I'm with you. I think it's closer than people think. That Miami defense is really under the radar. They got guys like Jordan Poyer who came over from Buffalo, and Jordan Poyer's on that defense now, and they got that defense is good in Miami, and their offense is really good in Miami. I agree with you. I don't know if I could say that they'll run away with it. I think New York is going to actually be a very good football team, but I think Miami wins this division. So if I go with the 10.5, it's going to be close. I think this is a team that can win anywhere between 9 and 11 games, but if you win 9 or 10, you don't go over 10.5. So I guess the probability chance they're more likely going to be under the 10.5. But yeah, that's what I would bet. But I don't know, man. I feel like this team on paper, I mean, you said they're the paper Jets. On paper, they look all right. And let's look at the ADPs of these guys because you have Breece Hall as the number one asset on this roster, which is kind of surprising to me, by the way, based off of how highly we talk about Garrett Wilson and how much the Dynasty community fades running backs. They actually are higher on Breece Hall than Garrett Wilson currently at the time of this recording. Aaron Rodgers is the QB 31, Braelon Allen, running back 42, Malachi Corley, wide receiver 74, and Mike Williams, wide receiver 82. Dude, when I'm telling you, this is Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and then we're taking shots on bench guys that can turn into fantasy football flex plays, it is very heavily weighed upon Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. And we kind of talked about them a little bit. You have any gripes with where those three are at, or should we talk a little bit about some of the deeper options here?
Those deeper options, man. Garrett Wilson. I think we've spoken about Garrett Wilson before, like as far as like where I think his slotting is amongst the wide receivers. I think that I look at him very similarly to what I said about Devon Achane, minus the outside factors of the other running backs, things like that. Garrett Wilson, it's a situation where I'm just like, if someone told me that he's not number 6 and he's anywhere in between number 6 and number 10, I'd be like, okay, you know what I'm saying?
You can swap him in Puka. You can swap him in if you feel like A.J. Brown, Malik Neighbors type of guy.
Yeah, Breece Hall, he's just not my running back too. He's just not. Like,
So who would you have as the top two? Bijan and
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Bijan and Gibbs.
Yeah, those are my number 2. And then you could talk about where you want to put, and I know they're old, but like, or one of them's old, but you could talk about where you want McCaffrey, Breece Hall, and Taylor. You could talk about where you want those guys. But my clear top 2 are definitely Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, no questions asked. That's where I'm at on those guys. Those depth options, like Mike Williams, shouldn't even be there. Like, they should just erase his name from the annals of time and space. Malachi Corley, I'm definitely checking for Malachi Corley.
I want to have a conversation about Braelon Allen and Malachi specifically because Braelon Allen is getting a ton of hype in the Dynasty community right now because Braelon Allen had a very early breakout age at Wisconsin. He was a guy that a lot of us checked for. Then the NFL draft kind of came around and it was like, he's a fourth round guy. Nobody really checks for the fourth round guys. He goes to a place where obviously Breece Hall is clearly the running back one. But if Breece goes down, you think Braelon Allen could be a big like home run hit for fantasy teams?
Absolutely, positively. I remember we were talking about, I don't know if we did a video about it or we were just talking about it. We had very high hopes for Braelon Allen coming into the draft before we knew where he was going to land. And then once he landed where he landed, kind of just like, oh man.
It's like the pathway to touches was like, there's not a lot there.
But maybe the Jets, but have we ever stopped to think that maybe the Jets drafted him because they're not 100% confident in Breece Hall's health? Like, so that to say that, I think that he has a chance to be a league winner that season if something happens to Breece Hall and you already have him sitting on your taxi squad or something like that. So I could,
And Breece is going into year 3. He's a second round pick, so he doesn't have that 5th year option. A year and a half from now, we could be potentially looking at Braelon as maybe the heir apparent to Breece Hall in this backfield if the Jets don't want to pay, Breece Hall a bag of money, because I'm assuming Breece is going to ask for a bag of money. And by that time, Aaron Rodgers probably is retiring, and this Jets team is going to have to build for the future. They'll probably pay Garrett Wilson. You want to build around a young wide receiver, but you want to build around a young running back? Probably not.
Right.
It's probably not the way to do the NFL rebuild. Maybe that's something, but I do think that there's a chance that, like, probably too late now. It's worth checking. He's, like I said, he's getting a lot of hype right now because of his preseason performances. But if I have Breece Hall, I'm paying up. I'm paying up to go get Braelon Allen as my handcuff. And I think if you can go get Braelon Allen just to throw him on your team, you might be having one of those high-end handcuffs. Think of like the in years past, the Alexander Madisons, the guys that, like, if they get the opportunity, they can give you those running back 1, numbers, those running back 2 numbers very quickly. I think Braelon Allen could be one of those guys.
Man, it's weird to talk about Alexander Madison in that light after.
I know, but for so many years he was so good, and then the year he became the starter, it just kind of crumbled. But whatever.
No, 100%. I'm 100% with you on Braelon Allen and Malachi Corley. Let me just throw this out real quick before you dive into Malachi Corley. Let's say hypothetically that Vegas is right and the Jets are an 11 win team. That would mean that not only is the defense playing well, but the offense is also playing well. Who is the legitimate competition for Malachi Corley for the second wide receiver? Is there anybody running away at that position as a second wide receiver? I don't think so. Honestly, and I'm talking about weapons overall. After Hall and after Wilson, who is the next weapon in line? I'm already removing Mike Williams. I know they probably picked him up to be that second weapon, but it's not going to happen. You breathe on a guy, he tears an ACL. So the opportunity, the path is right there for Malachi Corley to be very relevant if the Jets offense is buzzing this season.
That's the thing, man. You're gonna have guys like people have been so critical and so negative of Malachi Corley this offseason, and I, for one, have not been one of those people. I've talked up Malachi Corley quite a bit on this channel. In fact, the best video that we posted, I guess highest viewed video all offseason that I had put on this channel was about Malachi Corley. Malachi Corley was on the thumbnail as one of the deepest sleepers that you could draft in your rookie drafts. I look at this rookie class, and there's people that are totally dismissing Malachi Corley for reasons of probably legitimate reasons, where you're saying, hey, he ran a lot of gimmicky routes in college. You know, he was getting bubble screens, he was running slants, he was doing things like that. And I understand that at times, you know, you got to look at that and you got to be very critical about that. Fantasy football in real life, there's a balance of analytics and eye test.
Right.
The analytics would tell you that Malachi Corley has some red flags. The eye test tells me that this dude is a dog. It tells me that he can ball. That's what it tells me. And I'm looking at like these rookie rankings right now. Malachi Corley right now in Keep Trade Cut from a rookie wide receiver. They have him as the wide receiver 17. You want to know guys that are going ahead of him?
Ooh.
Javon Baker, Troy Franklin. I like Troy. Troy's reviews this offseason have not been that good. Luke McCaffrey, Malik Washington, Roman Wilson, Jermaine Burton. These guys are going...
Hold on, Andrew. You're not telling me these people are ahead of him, are you?
Ahead of him. Malachi Corley is the wide receiver 17.
Yeah, that's extreme. Luke McCaffrey, whoa. Come on, dog.
We are dismissing Malachi Corley, and I look at those names, right? Like I look at Luke McCaffrey and Malik Washington, you know, Malik Washington of the Dolphins. You got Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek above you. You got Luke McCaffrey. You have Jahan Dotson. Apparently it's a wide receiver 2 competition still there, and Terry McLaurin there for you. Javon Baker, you know, you got the bad situation. There is nobody that I have talked about. Jermaine Burton, who's on the Cincinnati Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, going rounds and rounds and rounds higher than Malachi Corley. Nobody has the opportunity that Corley has in front of him. You said it. I almost said it with Garrett Wilson, that when you look at this offense, you say, damn, Garrett Wilson's going to catch 150 footballs this year, isn't he? Yeah. Somebody has to be the number 2 here, and if Mike Williams can't get on the football field, Malachi Corley is going to be involved in, and he... In his preseason game, week 1, they featured him on a couple drives. He came away with like 4 catches or something like that. He looked really, really solid. I still think, for whatever reason, people don't like the play style of Corley. He's been one of my biggest sleepers all offseason. He continues to be one of my biggest sleepers. People continue to fade him. The opportunity still sits in front of him. If he's not talented enough, he's not talented enough. You know what? It is what it is. But you're talking about a guy who's being valued outside of the top 70 wide receivers in fantasy, and he has day 2 draft capital on a New York Jets team that celebrated and threw their hands in the air and screamed and yelled, and when they drafted him, he's going to be involved. And it, like I said, if he's not talented enough that he doesn't perform, it costed you nothing. I got Corley in all of my leagues in the 3rd rounds of rookie drafts. You know, I was taking 3rd round picks. The 3rd round picks are picks that we take at and we say, I'll throw it in this deal because 3rd round picks are meaningless. We don't care. Throw them away. If you can get Malachi Corley, come on, man. He's just so undervalued. The opportunity is right there.
Yeah, man. And I was the whole time, like, I was rummaging over here, like, off camera and stuff, because I was trying to find my rankings that I did from when we had one of our drafts, and unfortunately I couldn't find it. But I had Malachi Corley. I think outside of the guys you named, the only guy who I think I had above Malachi Corley was Troy Franklin. So I can't fathom why so many guys with bunny high. I don't know why people are low on him. I can't remember what his numbers were at the combine or what led to such a sudden drop in trust in Malachi Corley. But if you can take advantage of someone, if you have someone who's crazy enough to give up a Malachi Corley for some aging wide receiver that's, you know, just the guy, or, you know, a 3rd round pick like Andrew said, you jump on it, because really clearly, when you look at the opportunity, it's right there for him. Andrew brought up they celebrated when he was picked, and that offense is totally ready for a player that does the things he does. Who else
They
on the
need
team
another
going to do
guy.
that? Tashawn Gibson, or I don't even know if I
Xavier
named the right
Gibson.
one.
Xavier Gibson.
Tashawn Gibson's a safety or something. Xavier Gibson. Even though I have heard a lot of good things about him this offseason, like, come on, they're much rather want their day 2 pick to be the guy they put in that spot over the guy that I believe went undrafted. So
let me throw out some of the names that are right around Malachi Corley.
Let's play the game. Let's play the game today. Let's play the game.
Okay, couple of the guys above him. Marvin Mims.
I'm taking Corley.
Gabe Davis.
I like Gabe Davis, but I'm leaning.
I think I go Gabe.
Yeah, that one's tough. That one's tough.
Tyler Lockett.
Depending on where
he's 32.
Depending on where my roster is at,
you got Luke McCaffrey.
I'm taking him over Luke McCaffrey.
Rashad Bateman.
I'm taking him over Rashad Bateman.
Quentin Johnston.
I'm taking next.
Wan'Dale Robinson.
I'm taking him over Wan'Dale.
Jalen Hyatt.
Taking him over Hyatt.
Mike Williams. Jonathan Mingo. Greg Dortch. These are the guys in the range. The nearest draft pick, according to KTC, the nearest draft pick, and keep in mind, KTC kind of overvalues draft picks just a slight, just because people get excited about it. The nearest draft pick, and then we'll finish up the Jets rant because I don't want to spend 45 minutes talking about Corley after I spent all offseason talking about Corley. But the nearest draft pick to Malachi Corley right now is 2025 third. You can send your 2025 third round pick, get Malachi Corley. Do it. Just do it. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm willing to die on this hill. And like I said, if it costs you a third round pick, it costs you a third round pick. They're not the end of the world anyways. But trust me, I think there's going to be some games and there's going to be some highlights from Malachi Corley this year that get people excited. And they're going to say, how did we miss this player all offseason? Why didn't we notice this coming? Because you didn't watch the league FFB. That's why. Now, there you go, man. So that was the AFC East. As I said, we've been going through these. We've done the North, the Souths. Those are on the channel already. Next week is going to be the West, so keep your eyes out. As I mentioned, there may be a little bit of information on here that could potentially, maybe, hopefully not, be tiny bit outdated as news develops over the next week or two. I am going out of town next week. We are recording this ahead of time, multiple episodes, actually 2 weeks of episodes ahead of time. So content still comes out when I'm out of town. So if there's something that's not, entirely up to date, hopefully this doesn't happen, but a Garrett Wilson injury or something happens in between now and then, take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. Anyways, do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that good stuff. We have a goal of 3,000 subscribers by week 1. It's a lofty goal. We're getting very close, down to the wire. But if you guys attack that subscribe button, I think we can do it. And War, where can they find you at?
You can find us over on Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling, where we talk about WWE, we talk about AEW, and we try to get your weekly fix in, talk about rumors and all that stuff. So, all the cool stuff kids like to talk about. So check us out over on the Crimson Mass Pro Wrestling with an attitude.
Hell yeah. All right, guys, like I said, more coming your way. NFC East later this week. Keep an eye out for that. Other content, all that coming out. But until next time, see you then. Peace out.